there. You got it, bro. Clicker. All right.
What's going on, everybody? Give it up for Client Ascension. I was in the bathroom earlier and I heard my man over there. He goes, "Man, Daniel just brought it." He's like, "I got all the value I needed so far." So my goal today is to help exceed that value and keep everyone talking about this event. Like Daniel talked about, I know how hard it is to get this amount of like-minded people in the room, and these guys did it today. So give it up for yourself. Give it up for Client Ascension. So as Andre said, I'm going to talk to you about 3 keys to doing the impossible. I don't know about you all, but I like doing stuff that people say, "Oh, you can't do that. You shouldn't do that. You shouldn't waste your time on that." But in reality, there are some incredible things you can do in this world if you go after it, if you apply these 3 keys. So I'm going to share with you these 3 keys, but I'm also going to share with you these 3 stories that inspired me to believe that the impossible is possible. First key, you have to voice it out. How is anybody going to be able to help you out if they don't know what it is that you want? If you start voicing out what it is you want, all of a sudden, the answers start coming to you. This guy right here, he's all the way to the left, the tall guy. His name is Jerry Weintraub. He is no longer alive, but he has an incredible story that will live forever that I'm about to share with you today. He woke up one day in the middle of a dream, and he said, "I will take Elvis Presley on tour and present him at Madison Square Garden." He woke up in the middle of this dream, and he wrote it on his notepad, and his wife's like, "Jerry, what is going on?" He's like, "Oh, nothing. Writes it in the notepad, puts it away. So then what does he do? He's like, "I got to voice it out. I got to figure out who the best person is to talk to take Elvis Presley on tour." So for those of you who don't know, Elvis Presley was the biggest name in the entertainment industry in the 1960s. The biggest name in the world. And he said at 26 years old, "I want to take Elvis Presley on tour and present him at the Mecca of all arenas, Madison Square Garden in New York City." So what does he do? He does his research, and he finds out that the guy to the right of him in that awkward hat, the Colonel, is the best guy to talk to take Elvis on tour. And he finds out that the best time to call him is the first thing in the morning. So as soon as Jerry wakes up, he calls the Colonel. He says, "Hey, Colonel, this is Jerry Weintraub. I want to take Elvis Presley on tour." He says, "Jerry, Elvis is not going on tour right now. And if he was, the hell would he be going on tour with you?" More on that story in a little bit. John F. Kennedy, 1961. He said, "We will take a man to the moon and place him back on Earth safely by the end of the decade." This is in 1961. He said, "We will take a man to the moon, something that no one has ever done before, and place him back to Earth safely by the end of the decade." He voiced it out. You guys know these guys? The awkward pictures when they were younger? Yeah, give it up. So a lot of people go to college and maybe they go to parties, they try and figure themselves out. But these guys, maybe they did all that stuff, but these guys got together and they said, "Hey, we want to do something great together. We want to do something great together. We want to build a business. We don't want to just build a business. We want to build $1 million business. No. We don't just want to build $1 million business. We want to build a multi-million-dollar business, make a massive impact, and do some incredible things in the world." So now, key number 2. You got to get around action takers if you want to do the impossible. This guy, some of you may know who he is. His name's Ed Milet. I voiced it out at my conference in May. I said, Ed Milet is one of my Dream 7 interviews. I didn't know how to do it. I just knew if I voiced it out and if I got around action takers, it may be possible. So what happened? People started telling me stuff. They're like, hey, Ed Milet is having a book signing in North Carolina. And if you go to it, you're going to get to meet him. So I get to meet him. Then a couple weeks later, someone goes, Ed Milet is shooting a pilot TV series in your hometown, 5 minutes from where you live. And you could be on set with him for 2 days. So I'm sitting there. They let me ask a question in the application. And I asked the question. I'm like, I got to ask a question that he's going to answer. And on the end of the first day, at the end of the first day, I'll never forget this moment in my life. He says, I'm going to answer 4 questions from the audience. First question goes, nah, not mine. Second question goes, nah, that wasn't mine. Third question goes, nope, these must be fake questions. Fourth question goes, it's my question. Chills are going down my spine. I'm like, Ed Milet not only answered my question, but now it is on television where everybody can now know the answer to something that was running through my mind. So back to our guy, Jerry. So Jerry, he's calling the colonel. So he's calling the colonel, and he decides someone in here was talking about consistency, right? Consistency. So he's like, I'm going to call the colonel every day in the morning. I'm going to call him every day. So he calls the colonel. He calls the colonel the next day after the colonel says no. He says, hey, Colonel, this is Jerry Weintraub. I'm reaching out because I want to take Elvis Presley on tour. He says, Jerry, you're not taking him on tour. So he calls him the next day. Jerry, you're not taking him on tour. What ends up happening is Jerry calls him every day for the next year. And they started to become really good friends. And a year later, he gets a call back from the colonel. And the colonel says, hey, Jerry, do you want to take Elvis Presley on tour? He says, I would love to take Elvis Presley on tour. So he says, okay, show up tomorrow in Las Vegas with $1 million. And keep in mind, this is the 1960s. He says, show up tomorrow with $1 million. Don't worry, you're only 26 years old. Show up tomorrow with $1 million, and you'll be able to take Elvis Presley on tour. Now, the problem was Jerry did not have $1 million. So what does Jerry do? He starts calling friends of friends of friends of friends of friends. Do you have $1 million to take Elvis Presley on tour? Do you have $1 million to take Elvis Presley on tour? Nothing, until he gets a call back from a guy at the radio station all the way in Seattle. And he says, hey, Jerry, I heard you're looking to take Elvis on tour. I would love to work out a deal to get that $1 million to you. I love Elvis Presley. So they work out the deal. The only problem, this is the 1960s, so technology isn't that good. So he runs into a problem at the bank, transferring the $1 million. They don't believe that this $1 million is going to this kid in his mid-20s, especially for Elvis Presley. So he has to make friends. He's got to get around action takers. He's got to get around people at the bank that can help him out. And there was a guy at the bank that actually helped him do that he actually ended up hiring down the road.
My mic doesn't work like half the time.
Who knows this guy? Neil Armstrong. He knew he knew John F. Kennedy knew that whoever was the first person to land on the moon needed to get around action takers. So they formed NASA. And then what happened is they formed Apollo 11, which was led by this guy, Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin. Hey, some familiar faces in the room right there. So I'm on a call with Andre every week, almost 2 years now. And I said, Andre, help me out with my talk. I said, who are some of the action takers that you're around? And he says, what's funny? My dad and my grandpa, they're always listening to my ideas. They're always helping me out. He said, my mindset coach, Mario, he gets my mind right. Me, Dan, Christian, and Daniel, we all have our different strengths. And we meet consistently, and we focus on how to refine what we can do to make our business the best that it possibly can be. Look at those action takers. Now, the third key to doing the impossible is you got to persist through the challenges. I've never known anybody that has been successful that hasn't had challenges, that hasn't had roadblocks along the way to be able to get there. So Jerry, he shows up in Las Vegas with this $1 million. He shows up in Las Vegas with $1 million ready to take Elvis Presley on tour. What? This is unbelievable. So he sees the colonel. The colonel's playing some craps at the casino. And the colonel goes, hey, let's go upstairs. We'll go meet Elvis. So he walks upstairs. He opens up the room, and there he is, Elvis Presley, the man himself. So he hands him the $1 million check. But before they do the handshake deal, Elvis goes, there's two conditions. My fans have to be in the front row. I can't have business execs that don't know my music in the front row. And he says the second thing is there can't be any empty seats. If there's any empty seats, you will never take me on another tour date again. So Jerry goes and books a tour. The first show is in Miami in the middle of the summer. And Jerry gets a call from the promoter in Miami a couple weeks before. It says, Jerry, ticket sales are off the charts. They're off the charts. We got to do a matinee before the show. So a matinee is a show during the middle of the day, and then they have the main show at night. So he says, okay. So now it's in July. It's July, and Jerry gets off the plane in Miami, Florida. He's sweating. There's sweat, right? It's so hot in Miami in the summer. And the promoter comes up to him. It gives him a stack of tickets. He gives him a stack of tickets. And Jerry says, what the heck is this? He says, oh, that's the tickets that didn't sell for the matinee. So Jerry goes to the colonel, and he goes, Colonel, I think we have a problem. All these tickets didn't sell for the matinee. The colonel goes, Jerry, we don't have a problem. You have a problem. So Jerry's like, okay, I got to persist through the challenges. I got to persist through the challenges to make this happen and allow Elvis to go on tour with me for the rest of his career. So what does he do? He calls the local jail cell and convinces the head of the jail to allow them to unbolt the seats that weren't sold, put them in the parking lot, put tarp over them, and then play the matinee. And then when the matinee was over, they bolted the seats back in. Elvis played the show that night. They get in the car after the concert, and Elvis goes, wow, that was awesome. The crowd is so much more livelier at night. And Jerry Weintraub ended up producing The Karate Kid 1, 2. He produced Ocean's 11, 12, 13, even acted in Ocean's 13, and is a person that I really, really look up to. He has a book, When I Stop Talking, You'll Know I'm Dead. One of the most inspirational figures that I've ever studied. July 21st, 1969. Many people see that step on the moon. But what few didn't see was Apollo 1, Apollo 2, Apollo 3, Apollo 4, Apollo 5, Apollo 6, Apollo 7, Apollo 8, Apollo 9, and Apollo 10 that didn't get to the moon. Many people didn't see the simulations that didn't work out. But then, Apollo 11, they persisted through the challenges. And Neil Armstrong steps foot on the moon. And he says, that's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. And he stepped on the moon. 8 years later, he stepped on the moon from when John F. Kennedy says, we will place a man on the moon and bring him back to Earth safely by the end of the decade. Look at these guys right here. Many people see the ups. Many people will see a successful event. Many people will see a business that is exceeding expectations, but few see the downs. Man, I've seen the downs. I was with these guys when they were in their college dorm room making $2,000 to $5,000 a month in early 2021. I saw that, and I saw the challenges that they persisted through every single week to be able to get to where they are today. Many people don't see at the end of last year when there was something that was not accounted for, that wasn't thought of, that made them have to reevaluate everything so that their business could grow. Many people didn't see April and May 2022 when they had to buckle down for 3 weeks to make sure that they could set their business up for success for the rest of the year and be able to partner with a guy like Daniel to be able to blow them up. Whew. Many people don't see that. Many people don't see that, but they persisted through those challenges. And my goal has been to help 21 people get to 21K a month, and then one day have 10,000 student universities across 10 of the best cities in the United States. And these guys were the first people to get to 21K a month last year. And now, not only did they do that, but then their goal was to get $1 million business, and then they hit the $1 million run rate. And then their goal was to go way past that. And through partnering with Daniel and Client Ascension, they've been able to triple. They've been able to triple what they were trying to do. But what did they do? They voiced it out. They got around action takers, and they persisted through the challenges. And I say all this to say that you're going to have ideas in your life. People are going to tell you no. People are going to tell you you're wasting time. People are going to say that's stupid. But if you voice it out and you get around the right people and you understand that nothing great has ever come without challenges, you can do some incredible things in your life. Thank you all. Thank you, Client Ascension. It really means a lot to be able to be here, to be able to get to know all of you. I can't wait for the rest of the day. Appreciate you all.